All right, we're going to get started here. Just getting Carol also on the webcam. But thanks for coming out, everyone. Really excited. We have some great people on the list already. I'm seeing your names coming through. And we've got Carol here. She's going to be my partner in delivering this wonderful presentation to you. So, what I wanted to kind of do before we even jump into this presentation is kind of get the word out there, get some more people into this audio conference. Um, if one thing I just want to check really quick is if we're coming in clear for you guys. If you can just type in the Q&A that we can hear you, or you can hear us, that'll be great. Check on that. Yep, loud and clear. Perfect, everybody. Thank you. So, what I want to do here is we're going to actually play with some social media. I want you to go to your web browser, it doesn't matter, and pick up, go to Facebook, and I want you to go to our Facebook page. I don't know if you've ever been to it. Some of you might not, but it's facebook.com/balancedworklife. And you're going to see, I need to refresh it so you can see what I want you to do. We're posting the this presentation right now for everyone to get out there. And you'll see it right here. And what I want you to do is to click share and just say something like, I'm learning about my work personality. Come join us. That will get us some more people in here and it'll be a great conversation, some great feedback there. So, and then just hit share photo. So this also will let me see who's on this call. I can see your faces and I can smile at you and be happy. So we'll refresh that in a little bit to see how many of you guys are doing this, if anyone's listening to me. But we'll go ahead and get started. We'll come back to that later. So when you signed up for this webinar, I had a couple of questions on the registration page. So for example, the one pertaining to this particular webinar is, what about your career leaves you unhappy? And if you didn't get a chance to answer it, then go ahead and put some of those into the Q&A right now. I just want to kind of get a feel for what are some of these challenges that you all are facing right now, so we can hopefully cover some of these as we go through this presentation. See what people are saying. So we had, for example, Donna said, no energy at the end of the day. Louis saying, underutilized, no room to be creative. Aaron said, it's boring and I'm always the scapegoat. We have Lucy. She said, the fact that it's not lived up to my expectations, and I feel like I'm still not doing what I'm meant to be doing, although I don't know what that is. These are good. Sean saying, lack of direction based on skills. Really good comments here, guys. Thank you. And I want you to kind of look at some. These are actually some of the emails I've been getting over the last couple of months when asked a similar question. A lot of people are feeling like they're increasingly doing more work and struggling to manage it all, or maybe a lot of little things are adding up and their job is starting to drag on. They want something more, they feel stuck. They feel like a missile without a target. Type yes in that Q&A if any of these things are resonating with you. Yes, good, Louis. Awesome. Kimberly says yes. Deborah says yes. Good. So if these are the kind of things that you kind of feel, we're definitely going to be able to help kind of get you some clarity around your strengths and how you can get around these kind of challenges and be happier in your career. So that's a good sign. The big thing here is that we know you're not dumb people. It's not your fault. You know what you want, but you just don't know how to get it. You've tried a lot of things and it's just not panning out. And you don't know who's giving good advice and who's kind of wasting your time. So that's why you're here, obviously. You wanted to go to some experts who have worked with lots of clients in similar situations and have helped them make it big. And you want to work with a team that's got a proven track record, or they're not just faking it to make it. So here's what you can expect from us in the next hour. We're going to talk about some tools that can help you understand yourself, understand others, and build relationships. If you've been to our website, My Careertopia, there's an about page, and this graphic you see here is really like what we call our formula for a perfect career. It all starts with really understanding yourself. How many of you have ever gone from a really cruddy career job, not a career, but a job that was not good, and you wanted to get out of it, and you finally found that job that you thought was going to be the next best thing. You go into that, and then 6 months later, you realize it's also not that great. Type yes if that's something that you've experienced before. Yeah, Kimberly says yes. It's really common. Seraphine says yes. Tom says yes. Yeah. So the way to get around that is to really understand yourself, understand what your strengths are, understand what your motivations are, understand what your work personality is like, so you can start to recognize these things. In the second part, when you understand others, you can start to see a potential person you might work with, and you'll know right away this isn't going to work very well. Or you might have experiences where you can find those people you need to bond with and find in your network so that they can get you into those careers that you will enjoy. And that's the third part, building those effective relationships. How many of you have ever gotten a job based on the people you know? Type yes if that's been you. I know I have. Yes, Sean says yes. Lots of people are saying yes. Wow, you're blowing up the charts. Louis, Lindsay, perfect. Thank you guys. So let's continue here. So today, I'm going to show you a little bit about what we're going over. This is a webinar series, so we're actually going to be doing 3 of these. One today, another one on Wednesday, another one on Friday. So today we're kind of talking about how you work, how you respond to challenges, how you respond to pace of your environment. Lots of those kind of how you would do your job if you wanted to do it the way that you would naturally do it. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about the why. So once we know how you kind of do a job, we want to know why you do the job the way you do. And then the third thing is who. So we're going to show you a really cool tool at the end of this that can help you basically make those relationships and connections with other people in a really easy way. So before we go much further, I kind of wanted to introduce myself. A lot of you this might be the first time I've really been able to talk kind of openly about who I am, why I'm here, why you guys can even listen to me. I know I'm a young guy. I'm a Gen Y, and I graduated a few years back or whatever. But while I was in college, I was one of those really big go-getters. I graduated out of high school with over a 4.0 GPA. I went into college, had 4 jobs at one time, got married while I was in college, just was trying to extend myself as much as possible so that coming out of my college career, I could get into something that I really wanted to do and I would really enjoy. So I worked with great companies too. I worked with Dell. I was their face for ASU. And on the weekends, I would fly out to Utah and other states and deliver Microsoft consulting when they were launching Vista. And I worked as a bank teller to kind of bring in the benefits of health insurance for my family while I was doing all of this. So I was really eager, really optimistic, really thought everything was going to be great when I graduated. But as you know, the last several years have been very unpromising for recent grads, and that was kind of my situation too. I graduated, there weren't very many good jobs in marketing full time for a lot of the places I wanted to work. But I didn't have the luxury of just sitting on my laurels and waiting for that kind of career to come and just I'll work at Starbucks until something happens. I had to find something. So I took the best opportunity that presented itself, and that was working for a small but really rapidly growing IT outsourcing company. And they made me one of their sales account executives. And by that they meant you're going to call 200 people, cold call from a list that we bought, and you're going to talk to the CEOs and IT directors about outsourcing IT. And it was really bad. Not that the job itself could be bad. It was the whole environment and everything that added up to it was really bad. I saw lots of people leave. Every Friday was a mystery whether you're going to stay or not. It was just one of those hellholes. And and that's where by a year after that, I was out and Balanced Work Life found me and brought me in, and they taught me this wonderful system that I'm about to share with you that really helps you understand yourself, your work styles, and motivations, so that you can really see how you're going to apply these things in your career going forward. So that's become one of my missions. As a company, and we'll talk about this later, we help a lot of people do this. But I wanted to really bring it out to the general public, not just the people who are working at these big companies that we help. So the other person on my team, Carol, you see her up there. She is she's our top coach here, and she works with all of our executives. She looks at all of their teams and helps them all work together. And she's very, very well certified and has lots of credentials to do all this, as you can see on this chart. So you probably know us as Careertopia. We're one of the top 50 blogs for young careerists. We've have this free e-course out there that you're happy to join if you want, if you haven't already. It's great. It's called How to Find the Perfect Career Fit for Your Personality. And we've been seen on a lot of these different sites. But we're also part of Balanced Work Life Company. They're the ones that kind of brought about Careertopia. And Balanced Work Life Company basically delivers thousands of these scientifically validated career and talent assessments that help people really find where they could be in their lives and what kind of jobs to seek. And then also we coach a lot of Fortune 500 executives through career transitions, team coaching, and more. So this is just to show that we do what we say we do, and we're not just trying to fake it till we make it, and you guys are our guinea pigs or anything like that. And so here are a few of our clients, and you might recognize a few of those. But then we're going to basically just go right into our presentation here. We want to talk about how to find your work personality. That's the first thing we're going to start with. And I want to ask you all a question. So what's kind of holding you back from probably reaching that career happiness that you want out of this, out of your lives? Go ahead and type those into the Q&A here, and we'll see what some of these things are that you guys are seeking. Great, great. They're coming in. Not sure what exactly my ideal job would be. Great. Risk. It's scary. That's a big one. Um, wow. Little coach doing some coaching training, difficult with people and roadblocks at work. These are all great. All great. Feast or famine, especially in home improvement in Rhode Island. Wow. Yeah, you guys got some real challenges. And hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these questions that you guys have as we go through this presentation. We'll keep going. I want to share a story to kind of set the stage for this. We're going to imagine that there's Tom and you both work at this Sprint, and you're in their tech support department. Tom, he likes coming into his cubicle every day and getting right to work. At the end of the day, he likes checking his trouble tickets and seeing how he compared in his stats compared to the day before. And he's totally fine with going through the same processes over and over again with customers, even for the most trivial things. But then there's you. You kind of dream to get out of the office more. You're kind of done with you don't really enjoy that mundane day-to-day style, the same thing over and over again. You kind of want a little bit more variety in your job. And you realize that you have about a dozen or so of these different preferences. Liking something varied versus something more stable and the same. Liking to be with people versus being okay with working by yourself. So what these all add up to is something we call a work personality. And she starts to realize that this job isn't necessarily a bad job. It just wasn't a good fit for who this person was. And so that's a lot of times the trouble that we get into. These work style differences are really what make up our personalities at work. And for centuries, philosophers, scientists, and researchers have been classifying this human behavior, or what most of us refer to as personalities. And this is where I'm going to have Carol pick up and kind of share with you a little bit more about what we're talking about.
Thanks a lot, Bryce. As Bryce said, this we call it the language. It's a language of 4 root elements, and it's been around for, as you can see, since 440 BC all the way to current. And Empedocles started on a 4-group element, just all around behavioral science. And Hippocrates went on through, by 1921, Carl Jung had basically narrowed it down to really looking at behavioral science from 2 perspectives, and that was coming up with extroverted and introverted. Marston just basically strengthened the whole theory behind the 4 elements and the introverted and extroverted theories, and came up with the DIS and C language, which Bill Bonstetter today has modernized and developed through high tech, obviously, and computerized and using it clear across the world and through many of the Fortune 500 companies today. Basically, those 4 dimensions that I was speaking about are the D, and that is really the right-hand side of the wheel is talking about extroverts. You're going to either be categorized, as John came up with, either as an extrovert or on the left-hand side of the wheel as an introvert. Now, if you take and you split the wheel in half again, people that are going to profile at the bottom of the wheel, they are going to be far more people-oriented. Anybody that profiles to the top of the wheel, we say, are very much task-oriented. So again, the 4 different elements that we'll be looking at today and deciding what is your behavioral style preference. The Ds, I think of them as being eagles. They're very strong personalities. Also, then there's the I. The Is are very much like parrots. They're very interactive and colorful conversationalists, very big ideas people. On the left-hand side of the wheel, the S is more of a dove. They like peace and harmony. They love security and stability. And then lastly, the C. The C is represented by the owl, very much of an analyst, always being very critical, looking at things from all different perspectives. So basically, those are the 4 elements of what we call the behavioral science that we'll be using today. When you think about D behavioral style, think of dominance, think of the eagle. They're very decisive, very venturesome. They're outgoing and can be sometimes seen as being egotistical and very egocentric. But they're direct in the way that they're in their behavioral styles and can come across somewhat impatient. The I stands for influencing. So if you think about the parrot being very colorful and chatty and warm and receptive, very magnetic in the way that they behave. Then the S, those tendencies that we'll be referring to are really someone who's very steady and predictable. They're consistent in their behavioral style, but they're also somewhat resistant to change because they do like security, but they're going to be a little bit more laid back and easygoing than the other 2 styles. Then there is the C, the owl. The owl is very much of an analytical individual, very diplomatic, and they love to be exact and very methodical in the way that their behavior comes across. So they will be very cautious, again, not much into taking a risk if it's going to impact the quality of what it is they're attempting to do. Next, where things really get interesting, if you look at all of those behavioral styles, we are a blend of all 4 of those styles, and it's just a matter of looking to say, where are our dominant styles? And as you can see on this particular chart, and we're going to use Bryce as our guinea pig today, this happens to be his, you're going to see that there are 3 styles above that 50% blue line in the graph to your right. We call that the energy line. So anytime that one or more of these behavioral styles goes up over that energy line, we say that's where you're going to be demonstrating many of the traits that you see in the chart to the left of the graph, which is depicting the scores of each of the behavioral styles and giving you descriptive words based upon how Bryce scored in each one of those areas. So when you start to see these patterns, these are the things that I want you to kind of keep in mind. And it's not just about yourself. Once we kind of are aware of our own behavioral style, you can start to recognize these tendencies in other people so that you can pretty quickly assess how you need to start interacting with them. But keep in mind, Ds, when you score above that energy line, they're very quick to anger. They're problem solvers and they want to fix it and move on. If you're low in the D style, then you're a lot slower to anger. You're more patient. You have a lot longer fuse. The Is are very trusting of others. They're very optimistic when they score above that energy line. The low trust of others comes when you score lower in that particular behavioral style. The emotions that you'll see of a high S, they're very non-emotional. They won't show a lot of emotion and therefore difficult to read. Anybody that scores low in the S, they're the very opposite. They're showing a lot of emotion and they want a lot of quick pace around them. And then the C's, if you score high in this particular area, the high C's really, they are fearful. They want to get permission. They want to follow the rules. Anybody that is considered a low C, the very opposite again. They won't ask for permission. They'll ask for forgiveness later once they've broken all the rules.
Yeah, so I just wanted to stop here really quick and ask you a question too, Carol. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, when someone's in a room, like a meeting, and you're having a conversation with your teammates or whatever, I always notice that there's some of those people that just really don't ever give their opinions or their feedback unless they're like called out. So, is that a good example of someone who might have a high S in that case?
That's a perfect example. And when you're in a meeting and you observe somebody that's doing that, just be aware that they could potentially be a high S. Therefore, they're not unengaged and not interested in what you're saying. They're more thought processors. They're thinking, they're listening to what is being discussed at that point in time. So therefore, you really do have to probe and ask them questions.
Oh,
Some of the tendencies, I'm sorry, were you going to ask a question?
no, you're good.
Okay, so some of the other behavioral tendencies that go along with that are high Ds. They can be quite assertive. They'll accept a problem, like I said earlier, and they'll go and fix it. Somebody who scores lower in that particular area, they're going to actually not be against, getting involved in those challenges and wanting to problem solve, but they'll want others to help and give them feedback or their opinions in order to move them along in the problem solving. The I about influencing, they're always, if you're a high I, they're always seeking out other people and wanting to influence and interact with them. Someone who scores low in this particular area, they're not as apt to want to walk into a room full of strangers. They're far more skeptical, not going to be as much as trusting of individuals in that scenario. When you run across a high C, they're going to be very resistant to change. Their pace is going to be pretty moderate, very easygoing. On the flip side of that, low S's, they're going to react to change. They love change. They're going to be a lot faster paced. And then finally, the C. They're the ones that really want to follow the rules. They want to know them and then abide by them. Anybody who scores low in this particular area, again, they're always actively making up their own rules and then actively breaking them.
Oh, good. I want to ask some of the people in the audience, do any of these kind of relate to you? Do you see yourself as a rule follower or not a rule follower, someone who likes a fast pace or a slow pace? Put some of your feedback in here so we can help kind of guide you through this. I know there's a lot of stuff to take in. But yeah, we'll continue, Carol, and we'll come back to their answers here in a little bit.
All right, we always want to talk about some of the fears associated with these behavioral styles. So think about yourself when you're trying to profile what you might be as far as a DIS or C. High Ds are very fearful of being taken advantage of. But whereas low Ds, they're not so concerned about having control because high Ds always want control of their situations. High Is, they really believe people love them, and so their biggest fear is that people will not like them or they won't have that social recognition. People who score low in I, not as concerned about what other people think of them. The S, when you score high in the S area, your fear most of the time is loss of security or stability. Again, it's that fear or resistance to change. Anybody who scores low is the very opposite. They're not fearful. They want change just for the sake of change. That's what energizes them. And then last, the C, it's the fear of making mistakes. When you're a high C, it's just, I want to be able to do it right, and I want to be able to make sure once I've done it, I don't have to go back and do it again. But the low C's a lot less concerned about doing things wrong. They're not going to be as detail oriented in that particular scenario.
Great. Yeah, we're getting great feedback from these people. So Serafina, for example, says she's a high D, low I, and fluctuating S and C. So it looks like you guys are picking these up perfectly. Deborah says a rules breaker, likes to need to be in control. Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly right. High D and C, or Louis says he's high D and C, low I and S. Great. Great. These are the kinds of things to think about when you're doing this,
Perfect.
because we'll bring these up in a lot of the things we talk about later on too. And actually, here's what I pick up again, Carol. So sit back for a little bit. I want to share some examples in case this might help too. So some famous Ds that you might recognize out there are Michael Jordan. He's very results driven. He practiced day in and day out, hours and hours to get better and better at what he did. Dwight Schrute, if you've watched The Office, he's an extreme example, but that's what you usually see in a lot of TV shows are extreme examples of these different kind of personalities. But if you remember Dwight, he's really just more about getting the job done. He doesn't care about feelings of people. He's all about just getting those results again. And then Frank Underwood, he was in that recent House of Cards show on Netflix, and he plays a politician who is very much about getting his different bills passed, being seen, and getting the support that he needs from other people, while he kind of just drives through and gets everything that he needs out of the politician stuff that he runs. Some famous eyes, again with the Office theme, we have Michael Scott. He can be in front of a group of people he's never met, and he'll still be able to be the entertainment of the group. He'll be able to talk with ease. He's not out of his element. He's perfectly fine with that. Robin Williams, Bill Clinton, those kind of people. Again, if you think of that wheel, they're on the side that was people-oriented, and they're extroverts. Uh, the S's. So here we have Mr. Rogers, Gandhi, and Pam Halbert. So again, these are people-oriented, but they're not so much the extrovert side of things. They're more introvert. They're more one-on-one kind of types, not as big a group kind of thing. They're the glue of your team. They're really going to be helpful in caring and making sure everyone's taken care of. And then the C's, the people who are the introverts and also the task orienters. So these are people that can, again, work on their own just fine. They are very detailed and process oriented. They can be analytical, those kinds of types. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have you all kind of share what you think you are, and I'm going to open up a poll for this so you can just vote on here. And then we'll see what this group kind of comes out to. It'll be interesting. I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. See if we can pull this up. And we're going to open. All right, so go ahead and start voting here. We're going to give you about, we'll count to 10 or so. Give you enough time to vote. And you can see those as they're coming in. So it looks like we're getting a lot of I's. That's good. A lot of C's. And some people are changing theirs probably or adding them. So that's great. That's great. Yeah, and that's the thing. Lindsay brings up a great point. I can put myself in the categories pretty easily. Her question is, what happens when you're a younger person who's still changing and adapting? That's a great question. We have a part at the end that will go through kind of more of these thought-provoking questions. So that's great. We'll make sure to come back to that. So yeah, so it looks like we got a pretty good group here now. 35 on the extroverted, people-oriented I's. A lot of D's and the C's and the S's. So it's a great blend. And again, you're not usually just one of these. You're a mix of these, but some will be more dominant than others. So I mean, that's great. Thank you. Go back to the presentation here. Where we were. So, Carol, again, this is back to you.
So a lot of people have a question about, wondering what is my style and how can I use this in my career? So basically, where we're going to go next is, I think, Bryce, you need to, you're wondering. So we're going to look at Bryce's report and use that as a great example, because when Bryce came to us initially, we always profile our candidates, and meaning we put them through this assessment to determine their strengths and how might that align to the job role and accountabilities that we have outlined in his particular role. when Bryce came to us, this is how he profiled, and as you could see, he has a high I because that he's plotting right to the center of the wheel, but he's very much in that high I area in the promoter. And you can look at his graphs to the left, and the graphs are actually correlating back to how he plots on the wheel. So in that first graph, the very on the right-hand side, you see the I is the highest. That is his primary behavioral style, followed up by the C. So two very opposing styles. And it was very indicative of what he was telling us because Bryce, you were pretty unhappy in your job. You were really having to be a promoter, to be in that sales position, doing 200 cold calls a day. How did that make you feel?
It was really draining. At the end of the day, I just wanted to go home and veg, which if
I
any
bet.
of you feel like that, yeah, type yes because I'd feel bad if I'm the only one.
Yeah, so what he found was that actually he was having to become someone he's not. And so that's what we're looking for and trying to determine whether somebody's properly aligned as far as their behavioral strengths to their job role. And for Bryce, in talking to him in the interview, you could understand that he was, very drained from having to be this promoter. This just was not his really natural style. So why don't we move on and to the next, and this is what Bryce looks like today. And so when we look at that, we go, wow, all of a sudden his I has come down significantly, and his C is his primary style now. And it's followed up by the S. And what you see between those two graphs is basically there's no adaptation. So the right-hand graph, if you go to the next
Sure.
graph, okay, what we'll see is that, compared to where he was before, this is what we're looking for. We want him to feel like he can be himself. When you're properly aligned to your job, you're not going to feel the need to change as much. So what you see today in that natural style and in his adapted style, there's very little change. So what you see at home and with family and friends in that natural style to what he adapts to in his work environment is very, very slight. So what that tells me, as far as I'm looking for, is there's not a lot of energy from who he is and then coming into work, because as we notice over on the before charts, that natural style and adaptive style, very significant changes, meaning he was having to really become somebody he's not in order to do his job effectively or be successful in his work environment. So the point here is, assess yourself, find what your primary styles are, and then decide upon that. With that said, determining what are your strengths, and then align them to the career that you feel would be the most energizing based on your primary and secondary styles. So for Bryce, when you looked at where you were before in that cold call salesperson position to where you are today, what do you notice?
All right, here's what I kind of noticed looking at this thing. First of all, at the before, you see those numbers under those bars? Like every one of those changed for like 20 or more, which means that's doing all kinds of stuff to my head, I'm sure, and how I feel and the stress and everything that's going on. Behavior wise, I noticed I had to be a lot more, my I had to be a lot higher. And again, that was having to deal with being more outgoing and personable and talking to complete strangers on a phone that I've never met and trying to get them not to hang up on me because I just cold called them. And they're like really important people that are very busy. And so, yeah, I had to boost that way out of the roof just to even get started. And you can see where it is today. I'm still about 50 there because I like people and I like doing that stuff, but I kind of am more realistic and more at the middle line there and not over the top, super like, hey, how are you doing? What's your name? I love you, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. But the other thing I noticed, like you said already, the today thing, I am more naturally what you see there right now with the C being higher, where I definitely more in my element when I can work on something and be very precise with it and make it perfect and try to make it all nice and pretty. The S, I like stability. I don't like a lot of change. Before I had to deal with a lot of change, and that was not my natural style. And then, yeah, as you can see, it's just night and day different. And I feel night and day different. That's the other thing.
So Bryce, basically what it sounds like is that you found a job that really makes you tick, and you're not facing a career anymore that actually sucks the life out of you.
Yeah.
Therein lies the advantage of really understanding what your behavioral style strengths are, and then how to best leverage them for future success and happiness in your professional and personal life,
Oh.
right? Because I'm sure your wife likes you a lot better today than she did a few years
Very
ago.
much so. No, and the other thing, you were totally right, is having this understanding of myself doesn't just help me now, it helps me for the rest of my career life. When people come to me, even in the last few months, when people come to me with opportunities, I can tell right away when it's not going to be a good fit, if the person that's trying to get me to jump ship is going to be a bad fit, and I have the opportunity to be honest and work with a lot of these people. So, so that's been one of the things I really like about it.
So basically, just as a last point from me, is your perfect career is really knowing yourself, and by understanding DIS and C, the DISC behavioral style theory, you can be able to recognize the styles in other people, and then know how best to adapt your style now that you understand. If you're a C and you understand the person you're communicating with is a D, you can build a lot more effective relationship with that individual, because you start to meet their communication needs, not what you need, but what they need. And that's what the DISC profile will assist you in achieving, is really building those effective relationships that will lead to your perfect career.
Yeah, and I'm just reading one of Lindsay's comments here too, Carol, because it's great. She said that I always thought maybe I just needed to push myself hard because I wasn't experienced enough. And what are your thoughts on something like that? Someone that's feeling that way?
Well, I always say, think of yourself. I give the analogy, if you're working really hard, like let's say you're in an airplane 5,000 feet above the freeway, and you're looking down and you see two cars going nose to nose and approximately 100 miles an hour, but you can't discern what the models are. And then suddenly you swoop down and you go, okay, what are these two models? And so suddenly you realize, oh, well, one's a Ferrari. And, well, looky there, the other one keeping up with the Ferrari is a VW Bug. And so what do you think, which car do you think is working the hardest?
Yeah.
Well, it's the Bug. And I always say, if you're working really hard, you're probably not well aligned. Your behavioral style is not really well aligned to what it is you're doing, because it's like an actor, you're trying to become somebody you're not, and that can become exhausting. Especially it doesn't mean that you can't do the job well. Don't misconstrue that. But it means that you're really having to work hard at it. So what I hear her saying is she's working really hard and it's draining her. What I'd like her to do is kind of reassess what it is she's doing, what it is she wants to do in the future. Because when you're actually well matched, your strengths are well matched to your career, it's not work anymore. You love getting up. You love coming to work every day and doing what it is you're doing. So that's where we really want to get you. And that's what I'm always looking at with my clients. Are you well aligned to what your job demands of you today? If not, how can we change some of the key accountabilities? Or should we actually be looking to transition you into a different career?
Excellent.
Make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's perfect. Did that help, Lindsay? Go ahead. You can let us know, and we'll happy to answer any other questions. So one of the things I want to share with you, if this is all interesting to you and you want to get started, we talk about this in great detail in our e-course. You can find it on our website, or just go to careerfit.mycareertopia.com. It's completely free. We'll walk you through this process and get you a general feeling of what kind of styles are more dominant in you. But if you want the most accurate results for what your actual style is, we also offer assessments for that as well. So how does this tool, again for you, Carol, how does this tool help me find more happiness in my career?
Well, it's just like what I said, and I'll reiterate. Once you really can understand what your behavioral style is, then you can start to say, okay, where is it that I would be able to really feel good, to utilize all my strengths. Hey, I love talking to people. I love being and promoting. Then that's the type of career you should look for. Um, avoid those career opportunities. If you're a people person and the job would say, okay, well, this job's going to keep you behind your desk 7 hours to 8 hours a day crunching numbers, I'd say, I don't think so. Let's avoid that career path. Let's look at something else. So it also helps you identify the styles of people that you'll work best with. We have a great team. We're all different. It doesn't mean that opposing behavioral styles can't work well together. They do. They complement one another. But it's really saying if my direct supervisor has a completely opposite style than mine, I can learn to work with that individual by meeting his communication style needs. Like I said, you'll know where you can excel and really capitalize on your strengths. But sometimes it's hard to avoid working for people that you don't get along with. It's learning how can I become better in the way that I communicate with opposing behavioral styles. So that, these tools actually give you a lot of information to do that.
Great. So again, a lot of this information comes from these reports. Here's some of the things that other people who've had these assessments have said. A lot of times I hear this crystal ball one that Casey's talking about. It's insane how accurate these things are and how much they get to know you. So it's really cool to try and see what that's like. If you do want a disc report, it gives you about 23 pages of information, and it answers those kind of questions you see there. How do you respond to challenges? How you influence others? How you respond to pace in your environment? How you adapt to rules? How you adapt to your job and where it's causing you stress? And then we also have 13 videos and tutorials that go along with it to kind of walk you through your report and give you more information out of it. So you don't feel like you're looking at this report and being like, I don't understand, or what to do with it, or what these charts mean, or you might have those questions, and those will help you with that. And then one of the things we really recommend for all of our subscribers and people on our Careertopia blog is to go with the Careertopia Starter Kit. And what that includes is all this disc report information that we just talked about, but it's also going to include a whole other section for motivators that we'll get into more on the next webinar on Wednesday. And it kind of looks at how your motivations compare to the rest of the world as well. And with that kit, you also get 24 of those videos that help you walk through it. And we'll also give you a year to the People Profiler, which is another tool that we talk about later. And basically what the People Profiler will do is all that information we kind of saw about ourselves in a disc report, whether we're a fast-paced guy or a rule breaker or anything else, you can kind of get a general summary of that about someone else just by answering a couple of questions about them. That's what the People Profiler does for you. So as a bonus to our webinar attendees, if you buy it, then we're also going to give you access to the TTI University, and that includes 21 videos that help dive into a lot of the different subjects on top of what we're talking about here inside of your report. So if there's something you want to dive deeper into, you can go and look at it and get videos on how to build that skill or how to understand that behavior better. And so how much do you think an assessment and training package like this would run at an executive level? Go ahead and type in there, because we want to have you guys, we want to get a feeling and make sure we're giving you the value you're looking for. Where are you all? Let's see. Stephanie says $1,000. And Tom says 750. Good, yeah. So that's exactly what we're trying to deliver. We're trying to deliver $750 to $1,000 worth of value to our clients, but we also want to make it affordable, obviously. So when you look at these assessments and how they run, typically a disc assessment's $100, motivators assessments are $50. The coaching video series are another $250 each, and the university access is $50 normally. So the total value is around $350. we have a list price of $97, and we give a webinar special of $77 for you today. And for the rest of the series, we'll be honoring that price for all of our assessments. The Careertopia Starter Kit, again, it has more of those things. It comes out to a total value of $800. Our list price is $175, and we're doing a webinar special of $147. And again, we really want you to feel like you're getting the value out of this. So there's a 30-day, 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you feel like any part of it isn't accurate for what you're doing, or you can't use this in any way with the challenges that you're facing, feel free to let us know, and we'll give you your money back. And the way that you buy them is you just go to mycareertopia.com, and I can just show you here. We have these coupon codes, Career Web for the Starter Kit and Disc Web for the Discovery Kit, and I'll email these to you so you don't have to worry about trying to scribble this down right now. And the offer will expire on Sunday, April 21st. If you go to our website, I'll just show you what that looks like. You just see it up here, featured products, and then you can add the Starter Kit or any of the other assessments. If there's one that you just want one part of it, you can do that too. And then the order form has a coupon code, and you're good to go. And so this is the time for questions. So does anyone have any questions? Then we'd be happy to answer them for you. And Lori has been taking down some of your questions too, and we'll see if she has any that she wants us to go through right now. All right, Lori, looks like we can hear you now. Here's a question from Z. Says, what if you know the only way to get into the job that fits you better is to take the terrible fitting job first? You know, like those get your foot in the door jobs. Is it worth it? Maybe this is too specific, but I wanted to ask. What do you think, Carol?
I think just to get your foot in the door, it really depends on your circumstances. If it's someone who's been out of work for quite a while, and this is just an opportunity, as you say, to get your foot in the door. Sometimes what people, I mean, if you have a really good manager, they realize, gosh, you know, Joe, you're really not meant to be behind the desk. I see how you interact with people, and I work with managers like this that are just wonderful and great people. Oriented, and they see their talents and they realize they're not in the right job. Sometimes you're right. You just don't want to be stuck, so to speak, in that job to where it's really de-energizing you. But I would also say, you know, if you're at a higher level and you can afford, you know, to wait it out, to find the perfect job is really the best scenario because that way you won't be quitting in 90 days and then starting all over again. So it really is an individual kind of, scenario where you have to look and say, you know, can I financially wait it out to find the perfect job or something more ideal than rather just having to, take the job and just so you can start collecting a paycheck. So it's going to be very personal, whatever you would decide to do.
Yeah, here's another question, Carol. So one of the people watching this was saying that what happens when you're what happens when you're a younger person and you're still changing or adapting? How do you kind of look at these styles, and what does it mean? What should you expect?
Right. Actually, your natural style will pretty much stay the same. It's your adapted style that fluctuates just dependent upon what's going on in your life or the type of work you're doing. We saw quite a significant change in Bryce's, and so what happens is when I work with clients that I'm able to assess, I'd like to reassess them every 12 to 18 months, and so you get a pretty good baseline. When they do change in their natural style, it's usually because there's been a personal, change in their life. Maybe they've had a crisis situation. Maybe they've lost a loved one. They've dealt with a medical issue. Maybe they're going through divorce. I had one top-level executive. She changed significantly I assessed her, 2 years earlier, and then assessed her again and said, hey, look at the vast difference here. And I said, what was actually going on at that time? And she said, well, to be honest, I had just started that job, and we had the largest contract on the table that the company had ever had. And so I was under a lot of pressure. So remember, these assessments are good stress indicators also. So basically 2 years later, she'd gotten through it. She's more familiar with her job, just as Bryce was. And so then that natural style really becomes kind of their staple again. But your values, what we get into Wednesday, are really what dictates your behavior. And so your values really are what fluctuate more frequently over time than your behavioral styles. Normally your behavioral style is just who you are, and it won't change that much over time, or shouldn't.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. One of the other things I was just noticing also is that a lot of these people are wondering, so you find your personality, and that's a good thing to do. What do you kind of do afterwards? How do we help them find a good job fit based on that personality? And I actually can show them something for this too here. So what we do,
Okay.
that's a great question. You have a couple options actually. If you go to our e-course on the one of the lessons, let's go to just, it doesn't matter which lesson here. So you get in. All right, so at the very last lesson, we have a great little tool for you in the workbook here, workbook number 12. And what that will do is it'll pull up this spreadsheet here. And what we've done is we've organized over almost 100 of these different jobs, and they've been all profiled for these different styles and motivators. And this is through all these assessments that have been run and what people are mapping to. So it's got lots of great, it's not just our opinions of what these are. This is validated kind of stuff for you to look at. And what you can do is on these, you can select which one is high for who you are as a motivator, or you can say, I'm probably a lot of these Ds, I'm very high on my urgency. And so you set that, and then it organizes them based on which one's got high in urgency, which one's got high in frequent change. You can change these all around, and it's a great tool to get started. So if you're more of the person who wants to kind of do this yourself, this is a great free way to do it. You have other people, on the other hand, who really get a lot out of talking one-on-one with us and talking with Carol and looking at their report with Carol on there and being able to bounce ideas back and forth and kind of work their way through it that way. So that's the other option. We do that kind of coaching too. Just if you send us an email, we're happy to take on coaching clients and help you through whatever your specific situation is too. So that's my answer to that. Does that help you? Go ahead and chat in there. And Carol, you work with clients. Maybe you can add to that too. How do you help them once they kind of get these reports and they learn more about themselves?
Well, it's just as you said, you've got to kind of look at where their strengths are. Do love to do, and then which is going to be energizing for you. And then hone in on some of the skills that are required for that particular career if you do not have them today, and how we can start to pull together an action plan in order to start developing and focusing on those areas so that you can make your dreams come true down the road. But to start with, it's very important. It's very simple. Are you people-oriented? Are you task-oriented? Are you an innovator? Are you more of an implementer? So just looking at some of the very basic things should start to make you think about what careers, require those types of skills. And it's kind of, boiling it down and being a little bit simple, but it gets a lot more complicated when we go through the entire assessment process of your motivators, and then some other assessment tools that we use and other techniques that we use to actually get you moving in the right direction.
And this just sparked my thoughts as well. I was helping one of our e-course students that was going through it, and she sent me a few examples of the job descriptions that she was applying for. And after looking at two or three of these, you can start to pick up on the patterns that you see in these jobs that you're applying for and what style they're kind of aimed at. And for her situation, it was talking about having a lot of analytical skills, getting a lot of results, being detail oriented. A lot of those buzzwords that you see are also the same kind of words you see in these different styles. And if you connect those two, you can kind of see, okay, this is really looking for someone who's a D or has a D and some C in them. Is that really who I am as a person? No, I'm more of an IS or something. And you go, maybe I shouldn't apply for this job because I won't be that happy there. I'll be like Bryce when he is in his before situation. Or yeah, and that's kind of how I've seen a lot of people take this information and take it to the next level. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for your questions. I just wanted to, before we hang up, just give you a quick update on what the next step is. We're going to do our next webinar on Wednesday at the same time, and we're going to talk more about the meaningful work side of things, looking at your values and what motivates you. And so we talked today about how you do the job, but the next one's going to be about more of why you do the job you do. So if you ever thought of these questions, why do people in good paying jobs still hate their jobs? Why is there no single incentive program that works for everyone? Why are some work tasks more enjoyable for you than others? And how do you find more of them? Those are the kind of questions we're going to answer in the next call. So just wanted to thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on the next call. And if you enjoyed this, get the word out, get more people in there. The more happy workers we have, the happier I am too. All right, talk to you later.
All right. Thanks. Bye.